I'm Kevin Mims with the Invading Sea, a Florida-wide media collaborative that reports on climate change in the state. As part of that effort, we've started The Business of Climate Change, a weekly interview with businessmen and women whose companies are either affected by the warming climate or address climate challenges. Today's conversation is with Irela Bagué, Miami-Dade's first Chief Bay Officer. Irela, thanks for talking with us today.
Thank you, Kevin, for having me.
Irela, first of all, tell me a little bit about what you do as Chief Bay Officer and why that position was created.
So I'll start with why the position was created, and then I'll go into what the role is. Back in 2017, we had a group of very concerned citizens and advocates, myself included, who were starting to sound the alarm about the decline of the water quality in Biscayne Bay. And we set up we hosted a summit and brought a lot of attention to the issue, so much so that Miami-Dade County Commission created a Biscayne Bay task force to really address all the issues that were impacting the bay. And really what we found in our work, and I served on this task force, I was appointed and ended up chairing the task force. And really what we found was that everything we do on land ends up in the bay. And when I say everything, I mean everything. from our storm drain systems, our septic systems, just our canal systems that end up moving water so that we're able to live here without flooding. And just, the immense amount of growth that our region has been going through, right? To more people, more poop, I usually say. And so there's those constraints. And so the bay is just starting to ask for help. So we worked for 18 months on this task force. We reviewed a number of issues. We had scientists present. We had experts of all kinds of general public and local communities, municipalities, etc. And we took all that information and we put together a report for the county commission with recommendations in different sections, addressing mainly how to reduce the nutrient pollution in the bay. So we had a horrible incident over the summer. As you know, we have been dealing with historic heat levels, and that exacerbates the conditions of our, water quality. And we ended up with a horrible fish kill last summer. And right around the time that we were, delivering our report to the commission. So sadly, it took an event like that to really speed up the attention. So I'm kind of glad that, it's sad that it happened, but it kind of, basically set the tone for all the work that we need to do. One of the recommendations, and it was the creation of this position, this stemmed from the report, to create a Chief Bay Officer to really serve as an advisor to the mayor and the commission, and also as an advocate, as well as a coordinator, because we have so many jurisdictions. The watershed is huge, right? And so we have so many jurisdictions, from state, municipalities, the county, the federal government. We have Biscayne National Park. So we have a number of entities all working, and environmental organizations all working to try to solve these problems, but nobody's really coordinating anything. And so that's another reason why we set up this position. And the mayor, we have a new mayor, then Mayor Daniela Levine Cava, who's a huge environmental advocate herself. And she has really made the environment front and center in her administration. So she asked me if I'd be interested in the job. And honestly, because of all of these issues and the fact that I kind of chaired, I felt like it's a good opportunity. I've been doing this a long time. For the past 20 years, I've been a Biscayne Bay advocate since I served on the Water Management Board. And so it just kind of made sense. Then the timing was right. So I'm really excited. It's a huge challenge, as you know, but I'm ready for it. And we'll hopefully move forward on a lot of these initiatives.
So, what kind of changes have you seen in South Florida in recent years with regard to climate change, and how have they affected the people that live there?
Well, we're starting to get used to king tides, right? This regular flooding event that happens, to the point where we didn't used to see, messaging from local governments, reminding folks that the king tides are coming. That's a new, uh, that's one thing. And of course, these occurrences, they create disruption, right? Again, I mentioned the historic heat levels that we're experiencing that caused that horrible fish kill. And now that's something that we're going to have to probably prepare for, because it's going to take a while to reduce the nutrient pollution in the bay as we move forward in a lot of these projects. In the meantime, is that going to happen every summer or every time we have a high heat level? And so climate certainly is impacting. Sea level rise is impacting our low-lying areas. They're on septic, some of them, that that just affects the groundwater water quality, ends up in the bay. So we have all these, there's everything's so interconnected. And again, these are impacts that average residents and businesses didn't have to deal with before.
So, what are the most pressing issues for governments in South Florida when it comes to addressing sea level rise and other climate related issues?
Well, I would say, obviously funding is a challenge, like with any government, and, understanding that right now we're in a pandemic, so things are even more challenging. But I would say, we're at a point though, it's challenging. The funding aspects are challenging, right? But I think we're at a point where we're starting to see progress. Miami-Dade County released a sea level rise strategy last week, and it calls for a number of solutions that we'll have to deal with and start working on implementing. We also recognize that, adaptation is one thing, but let's look at the causes of climate change as well. We must look at lowering our carbon footprint. We must start implementing renewable energy measures and solutions, and from the top down and the bottom up. So those are challenges. I mean, there are a number of solutions that we're going to be looking at, but they all cost money, and so we're all in this together, kind of thing. And another challenge is really, governments need to work with the private sector and even our own property owners, our residents. There are solutions that they themselves will have to make to their own properties. And so how do we help residents finance some of these solutions? And so we're starting to see a lot of creative ideas. The business case for resilience that came out of the compact recently shows that there is a return on investing in resilience. And so I think the message is pretty clear. It is challenging. It's going to be expensive, but there's always a cost to living in paradise, I say.
Irela, what kind of obstacles do governments face in their efforts to combat the effects of climate change and sea level rise?
Well, again, like I mentioned before, I would say the challenge is really how do we collectively work? I would say we've done a lot down here with the compact, the four counties working together, but we really need to start working in a more with a statewide approach, right? So local governments are feeling that they are going to need the support of our state government. But the good news is that our state government is responding. We have a governor that's stepped up and is being very creative when it comes to resilience. We have the leadership of our House and Senate. A bunch of bills were released. Were filed. A bunch of bills were filed recently that address a lot of these challenges and will create pots of money for these local governments. So again, it's coordination, collaboration, and just working together. I think from I know there's a lot of talk about the preemptions and stuff, but when it comes to resilience, I think we're there with our state government.
Got it. So, what are some things individuals and businesses can do to support the health of Biscayne Bay and curb climate change?
Well, I would say what we should all try to be doing is preventing pollution from entering the bay to begin with. I when I say this, it's like the biggest challenge for us is public education. We are fortunate that we're in a community so diverse, but within that diversity, people come from different places with different cultures and don't really understand how vulnerable our ecosystem is here, and that we're highly dependent. It's an economic engine for us, and so making that connection and your connection with our waterways, our watershed. I mean, simple things like don't litter. Everything ends up in the bay through our storm drains. Pick up dog poop. uh, Clean out storm drains if you see them, or report them. And really don't fertilize during the summer months. I mean, we get plenty of rain during summer. There's no reason why we should be dumping more nutrients into our groundwater. And of course, if people are on a septic system and they actually have the ability to connect to the sewer line because it's there, do it. It's You're doing your part, and you're actually in the long run saving your property. So those are just some simple things that people can do.
What can the Florida legislature do to help local governments and residents?
Well, we're starting to see, like I mentioned before, some bills that are filed. There's some funding sources that have been identified to help local governments. So I feel optimistic that we will start. I mean, this is what local governments have been asking for of the legislature. This partnership that we need to develop together. I mean, we're surrounded by water. It makes sense to have a state-led approach to resilience, learning from some of the work that's already been done in South Florida.
Irela, thank you for your time. We appreciate
Thank
it.
you much, Kevin. It's been fun.